maintenance of chargers with the experience of Mexico. And we'll have the virtual presence of public transportation management for Colombia, who's going to share his experiences with the planning on electrification of public transportation for the city. We have simultaneous interpretation available in English and also in Indonesian. To select your language, click on the icon in Zoom screen. If you have questions, please let us know in the chat. And also this session will be recorded to be available for everyone.
Esta presentación se realiza
This presentation is in partnership with the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, also known as TUMI, and also the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, and also GIZ. World Resources Institute is honored to be a member of this coalition together with C40 cities, ICCT, ITDP, and ICLAI. This web seminar will be presented by Rodrigo Yepes Sevilla, manager of Abante. This manager for the implementation of strategic public implementation of Pasto. He will be with us virtually. And also virtually will be with us Fernando Paez, director of WRI Colombia. Here at Live, we have the presence of Rafael Munoz, transport specialist of WRI Mexico. He's a civil engineer from Colombian National University. He holds a master's degree in transport systems from Technical University of Munich. And my name is Lydia Henderson, associated for research of electric mobility of the World WR Institute. Today's agenda includes a brief introduction of TUMI project, WRI, followed by a virtual presentation about Avante, and followed by a technical discussion of this tool. Also, we have time for Q&A at the end. In any time, you can send your questions to our speakers via chat.
La misión TUMI IPA's mission is
TUMI mission is to work with 7 global partners mentioned previously to make progress in the adoption of electrical buses in the main city of Global South. The program works in collaboration with 21 cities of deep dive, specific and escalating at least 500 additional cities to ease the change. The Global Association and Local Association will assist the cities in technical issues to overcome the barriers for adoption of electrical buses. More than 100,000 e-buses by 2025, and as a result, it's going to be an estimation of 15 megatons of carbon dioxide during the useful life of the buses. And this change is going to be done with the help of the TUMI e-bus station network help. That is a network for learnership between cities. And with this network, members are benefit from resources and knowledge share regarding the transition to electrical buses, including exclusive trainings, exchanges, and more.
Este mapa muestra las ciudades.
This map shows the deep dive cities in the project. They are located in Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, South Africa, Kenya, Uganda, India, Indonesia, and Vietnam. TUMI partners are developing a work plan to implement this in every city of deep dive cities. This map shows the cities of city network. Cities covers the same region as the same deep dive cities, and we expect to continue working or start working with the city to get more information on how to participate in this city network. Please let us know in the chat or get in touch with us after this event. Now, we hope you enjoyed this following session, and we will show you now a welcome from Fernando Pais from WRI Colombia.
Buenos días para todos y
Good
todas.
morning, everyone who's in here. Thank you, everyone, for being here in this moment. One of the main purposes in the developing of the progress is to share learns and to show that the change and this transition to zero emission vehicles is possible. Today, in the global agenda, the transition to electromobility is in the first line, especially because transportation sector is one of the main emitters of greenhouse gases. This transport sector is one of the main sources of these emissions and also with big growth. It is projected to 70% by 2050. Our worries of working on how to have better conditions for public transportation to reduce emission and make an impact, positive impact on health, because we're reducing the pollution of the earth, but also the reduction of greenhouse gases. So that's why this is the first place in the agenda. When we talk about electromobility, we're not talking only about transport, we also talk about different vehicles. At the same time, our work is focused on work in the cities be, to the transformation and reduce the emissions. In Latin America, the vast majority of population depends on transport. We estimate that more than 500,000 inhabitants uses the public transportation in the region. And also, in the region, there's the highest uses of buses in the world. And even though the progress on transportation, this is not fulfilling the needs. Another important element to consider in the framework of this conversation is there a lot of interest for this transition of low emission transportation. We also have to consider the public transportation is in a crisis, and this crisis is also an opportunity to make an important transformation, reimagine the public transportation in public policies, financing, and business models, better infrastructure, services, quality, and also technologies. And that technology is in this conversation about how to include electromobility. As Lydia said, it is neat that for this process we have to bear in mind big elements for planning elements that links not only the vehicle but also the batteries, infrastructure, and financing, technical and operational aspects. We have been working in this process and we've been learning. And also, some myths are not longer true about the transformation to energy. For instance, that the assets are more expensive. We have been studying if that is true or not and how we can avoid this element. Also, we have the resistance to this change and how the technology is being evolving, and how it's important to consider an institutional and financial aspects regarding public policies and institutions that are prepared for that. We've been working in that sense, and in Colombia, we would say they are pioneers for electric buses, led by Bogota, Medellin, and Cali cities. Bogota today is a city that we hope to have one 1,600 electric vehicles. We also talked with the Ministry of Transportation to have an impact in intermediate cities that they individually don't have a high impact or division. When we look at this on a collective way, the impact is bigger. Also, we can make an impact in most vulnerable communities because of the conflicts, and also with an important leadership by women. Another thing is that intermediate cities in Colombia, public transportation topics are under development. Also, another thing that we identify, they have less economic capital and they need more support. When we see the fleet in intermediate cities, we found that the 90% of vehicles are different technologies, 10% Euro 4. It is very important, this opportunity to renew the fleet, to be able that in the following years we can have an important transformation to electrical vehicles. In Colombian intermediate cities, we've been working with Monterrey, Pasto, Valledupar to explore this opportunity of electrification of their fleets. And we found a lot of challenges. There is low demand, is an important point. Informal transport is an issue that we have to pay close attention to, and also important elements for transport like trust in the electricity network. In about the cooperation, we can adopt the acceleration of electric vehicles. We've been working with JEPES and its team. We've been exploring possibilities to take a fleet, and we'd make processes in the city that we'll be sharing today. There's one test electrical vehicle that allows us to have data to be more certain about the transition process. Pasto also showed an interest beyond the process. They've been doing activities for communication for important partners to be um, working with this important process in Colombia and Mexico. And it's also being able to develop models that we're going to share with you for us to have more elements to help this, to make this change and to show that this change is possible and that the knowledge barrier are being broken, and also being able to show that the impacts about environment, health, and community impacts are important when talking about transition to electrical fleet in public transportation. So I hope we have a very productive session and that the experiences and learnings that we're going to share today are useful to make progress in the transition for zero
Muchas
emissions
gracias, Ana.
vehicles.
Y ahora me gustaría invitar al equipo de Avante, Rodrigo
And I
Yepes.
would like to talk with Avante.
Diapositiva.
Could you please share this, change the slide?
Rodrigo, te invito a presentar.
Hola, muy buenos días para
Good
todos
morning,
los participantes.
everyone.
Un agradecimiento
I would like to
a la
thank,
mesa
first of all, to the organization of this
Bueno,
talk.
mi nombre es Rodrigo
My name
Yepes,
is Rodrigo
soy gerente
Yepes.
de Avante,
I am the Avante manager
para la implementación de un
for the
nuevo sistema de
implementation of
transporte
new
público en la
transportation
ciudad de Pasto,
in Pasto
ubicada
city,
al
located in the south part of Colombia, 80 kilometers from the border with Ecuador.
Los entes gestores son entidades que prevén la política pública.
There are some people and entities working with public policies in Colombia. They are going to, they want to improve the transport and support the transportation sector, but their service is provided by private companies. In the case of Pasto, there are 4 transportation companies that are a fleet of about 420 buses according to the design of the new system. So we will share with you the experience of our process of modernization of the public transportation system. That is, together with this possibility, with the follow-up of the Transportation Ministry and also WRI to evolve to technologies for the fleet that provide services in Pasto City. I would like to start talking about the challenges in the public transportation in this city. First of all, as Fernando said, is that we have a sector that was affected during the pandemic and that today is in a reactivation stage, but far from the numbers of the demand and also the tariffs that were previous pandemic. And this is a challenge, a very important challenge, facing the economical projection and the capacity to invest. This is a scenario that everybody experienced in the world. Also, the idea of having transport with a less pollutant technology has a very impact in a city like Pasto, because this is a very old city. In 2038, it will turn 500 years. And it's like the colonization, Hispanic colonization cities. We have a square design, and the city start growing according to that design. So the challenge is more than the real impact in the pollution of public transportation. There's a strong impact in the quality of life of the users, and also for the people that is using the public space, and they have the impact of the emissions of the current buses that are diesel buses. So the main need, they call it chimney buses, because we can feel this impact of the diesel smog. And it's been like a dream to transform to technologies that allows us to breathe a better air. So the challenge is to find public and private alliance to start this process, considering that one thing is having a dream and the other thing is to make this dream true. And in between of them, we have to have a structured project, and we need to find alliances to structure these projects. In this case, we found initially 2 through the Ministry of Transportation. We accessed the calling from WRI, and this is an important help for the design of implementation for electric fleet in public transportation for the city of Pasto. I will also share with you our current state, but our current challenge is to create a pilot in an initial route for public transportation in the city
Digamos que iniciar este camino
to
ya
start this path, and also with the current cycle of the public administration who's going to finish on December 2023. The idea is not only to have some studies, but also to start the implementation of the process for it to be continued and has less risk of interruption due to political changes or administration changes. The third challenge that we can see is to create a business model for financing and operation of the buses. This is more important, and we also have to understand that intermediary cities has a reality that is different from the technical and economical point of view, but also from the public transportation point of view, that forces to create special models and that has to understand this particular characteristic. So if you have a recipe for Colombia, Medellin, Bogota, and Cali, it's not the same recipe for cities like Pasto, Montelia, or Neida. This is a very important challenge. So to understand that local administrations have to understand it, also national government in public policies. For instance, because in intermediary cities, there's no concession contracts in 15 or 20 years, like in the biggest cities in the country that they have massive systems. And then there it means a difference in the financing modeling, in the income projection, and the risk distribution, and in different factors that are key for the structure of this operation. So a big challenge is to have a recipe that works for intermediary cities schemes. There's also a very important process in like pedagogy, because we have to explain to the city all of this. We have to explain them. And that we mentioned during this process is that we have to implement electrical fleet involves to design an operational system and also to design a complete integral model. This is not like when one normal person goes to a concession dealer and buys one vehicle or one motorcycle and takes it to its home, or when a person goes to the dealer and purchases an electrical car. For the public transportation, it involves different investment factors, a financial model, risk distribution, recharge, and articulation from different partners of this business, which is complex. So we have to start with that. And also the challenge reflects an institutional strengthening. That means that the cities have the capacity for these processes. I think that the work we have done with WRI is very important in this sense because we perform some studies together with technical personnel and also the city teams. And it allows us to share experiences that are useful for the city to make decisions about processes coming forward.
El estudio que pudimos avanzar con
That the
WRI
study we were able to perform with WRI is a prefactibility study in which some results that are technical and financial, very important, that allows us to have a more clear picture of the city. I told you previously that the system for the city of Pasto, we want to make the service with 420 buses distributed in 25 routes of the city network. One result very important for the city is that after analyzing its particular condition, Pasto is more than 2,500 meters above sea level in the hilly mountains of the Andes with geographical conditions that are not homogeneous. We have steeps, we have mountains, and the fact of having this study, we can conclude that from the 25 routes of the network from the Pasto city, we found 5 with high potential, 5 with medium potential, and 15 that with this technology available right now don't have the potential for the transition. That means that today we have a real image of electrification in 10 out of 25 routes. And this is a win scenario according decision making and also for the city expectation of this requesting that I've been doing. So today having the tools to say which is the real image picture of the city for this change. This means that from the 4,020 buses, we have a potential demand of 153. And it's also important for us because we can identify the electric routes, which are the tracks, or how we can take advantage of the parking zones that the city already built that are for parkings that could be used, and to find out that all these advantages that we can make the best of them. So this is an important factor for the Pasto city. And I think if the cities apply this analysis, it could be useful to understand where to focus. There's also a process when we wanted to have a test on the field, trying to coordinate with actors in this field. We were able to bring one electrical bus with similar conditions for the service in Pasto City that is 8 to 9 meters, and we wanted to test it in the network of the city to collect this information and compare this information with the initial information from the study. And it also allowed us not only to have more information, but also to create a more expectation in the local actors, in the community, in the politicians of the city also. So it also allows us to create more expectation about the process. We are now in this point with the information that we have. We can go to another study that allows us to have the technical input about what would be this implementation in Pasto City. We also continue with the management and trying to look for some new alliances. We have had meetings with providers and dealers with the electricity area of the country. There are some interested parties. We believe that this electricity sector is very important because they have the distribution and they also have the financing to start with this kind of projects. We have already seen some experiences where the project has been very important for the electricity part, like in Cali City, and we believe that we can take this experience to an intermediary city. And there's the challenge maybe because there's interest from the electrical sector, and this is also good news for us for the possibility to implement. We also have a confidentiality agreement with a big company of the electrical sector to share information and also explore the opportunity to build a scheme that is legally and technically available. When we resolve the technical part, then we can see some formulas or actors who solve the financial part. It is also very important to resolve the legal part, to see which one is the model for acquisition, delivery of the fleet, and how this scheme could be designed. So we think this is a very important challenge we have to focus on. And if this point is making some progresses as wish, we would like to implement a pilot consisting of the electrification of one first route in the Pasto city, composed of 15 buses. This is a strategic route from north to south, including the university area, and that we hope is the pilot that this administration, until the end of 2023, could implement.
Bueno, aquí vemos una
Here
imagen
we can see an image of the bus who was the pilot in the city. This is a picture of the Pasto city, and what we can say is it was satisfactory. This exercise allowed us to measure the impact in the route. We were doing some tests and we were able to measure the electrical performance in the system according also to the topography of the municipality. We could share electrical consumption results with the previous studies, and we could assess the kind of vehicle and its adaptation to the infrastructure and the characteristics to the city. And I think this is a progress that we can consider as positive. Finally, I would like to share with you 4 conclusions or reflections that we work with the team, and they are the following. The first is there's a political willing to start the implementation of electrical technologies. I think that this issue, all the citizens look with interest and they also request make progress in this sense. This also happens with the authority and for the decision makers. So there's some coordination to make progress in this sense. Second, it's necessary to improve national policies that allow to finance the technological transition. In Colombia, there was a law in 2019, the law 9164, about electrical transportation that includes stimulus and financing for electrical transport. So we have to implement this law. The current government created a fund for technological issues that is created as a tool, but has no resources. So it's very important to give resources there, to have a fund that could help to co-finance together with the city some investment process, or with some actors that are participating in the implementation of this kind of solutions. So we have the legal tool, we also have some institutional tools, and now we need to make progresses in this tool. The same happens with some potential funding system, not only put funds on them, but also to understand how the actors work on intermediary cities, which are different from massive systems. This is the third conclusion, is that the operation in intermediary cities is different legally from the massive transport. So we have 2 options. We can balance the conditions of operation, and that the intermediary city could start with dealer's contract at massive transportation system. That could be one option. Or the second option is the national policy understands the difference, and this difference can reorganize the transportation for medium companies, but also have some tools for this evolution and to adapt to the reality. And the final conclusion for Colombia that I could share with you is that we all know that we have a new national government with a political constitution. This government has to create a national development plan that will result in a law. These first 6 months of the government between August this year and February next year, they will be creating the plan that will be approved on February 2023, and we have the chance to have some transformation for public policies, and also this will have the power of law. So this is a very important opportunity for Colombia to align some things and correct some gray areas that we have in the Colombian law currently. And this could be translated in stimulus for intermediary cities.
Estas
I
reflexiones.
think that with these reflections, I could finish my presentation. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention.
Gracias. Vamos regresando a la presentación. Y me gustaría introducir Rafael Muñoz del
I
equipo
would like
de...
to introduce Rafael Muñoz from WRI Colombia. Thank you very much, Lydia. With the context that Avante manager could gave us about Colombia, we would like to start the previous context of electrical mobility. We have a very big challenge in all Latin American cities and also Asian cities. We can see urban rates of growth that are very high, and it will reach 2.5 billion people living in cities. This could cause many health externalities. Today, 8.7 million people globally die as a result of exposure to air pollution. And also, the most affected population are those who uses the public transportation and also pedestrians. So we have a big challenge in this point. And also, don't forget that transportation is the second source of greenhouse gases production. But we also have the opportunity for change. We are working in opportunity. One of these opportunities is electrical mobility. We can promote behavioral changes that allows us or allows to our citizens to use more public transportation. And also we have active models of transport. And also the electric mobility as an alternative to make this transportation sustainable, financial, and environmentally speaking. So before to talk our strategic model, I would like to see that electric mobility, it's more than just buses. We're talking about every system transportation that have engine as a propulsion source. Not only buses, but also particular vehicles and also electrical bikes that are so popular right now as an alternative to deal with traffic. Electric alternative wants to reduce the emissions in city and also to improve the quality of the service for passengers. It is also based on the methodology of avoid, shift, and improve. Avoid the use of non-sustainable transport modes. It also helps with the shift to urban public transport and non-motorized modes. And also it has an important improve factor of the technological renovation. So the evolution to more environmental friendly engines. In this context, electric mobility has different containers. We have to consider that electric mobility is not clean itself, so we also have to manage with resources. Internally, vehicles have some limitations in terms of batteries and also challenges for the charge infrastructure. So if we have more buses, we will need more charging station. But this also would have benefits. to
hacer más
reduce the emission.
equitativo el acceso al transporte
We
público y también a mejorar la
can
calidad de
be
vida de
more
de
equitative
los
on the
ciudadanos de
access
nuestras
for public
ciudades. Siguiente, por
transportation and
favor.
improve the quality of life of our
Entonces
citizens.
queremos también decir que los proyectos de electromovilidad deben ser integrales.
So
Nos
electric mobility
deben
has to
tener un
be
enfoque en
integral,
infraestructura, operación
focus
con
on
perspectiva de género e
infrastructure
inclusión social
operations that
y
account for
financiamiento de los
gender and
sistemas.
social
No
inclusion
es
and
solo la
system
tecnología de los
financing,
vehículos ni los
not
cargadores,
only
sino un esquema que debe
vehicle
abarcar
technology, but also a scheme
varias
that has
dimensiones
to cover
de nuestros
different
pasajeros.
dimensions of our
Siguiente, por favor.
passengers.
Y en este sentido también es
In this
importante
sense, it's
mencionar
also
que
important to
nuestros
mention
sistemas de buses
that
eléctricos,
our
como nos
electrical
mencionó
buses system,
Rodrigo,
as
no
Rodrigo
solo se
mentioned,
basan
not only
en
are
comprar un
based
bus y ponerlo a
on
operar,
just buy
sino
one
que
bus and start
tiene
working
las
with it,
restricciones de
but
batería,
also it has some
autonomía y
restrictions of
también las condiciones
autonomy,
propias de cada ciudad
battery, and
deben ser
also the
planeados
city's
desde las
condition.
características
It has to be
y las
developed
limitaciones
from the
técnicas de los buses,
characteristics
específicamente pues
and
la más grande definitivamente es la
technical
batería
limitations of the
y
buses.
también en
The
la
biggest
recomendación
one
de
is
operación
battery,
de los
and
fabricantes pues
also
para poder
the operating
aumentar o
recommendations
alargar
from
el tiempo de vida de las
manufacturers
baterías.
to
Siguiente, por favor.
use better the batteries.
En este sentido, desde
In
WRI
this
hemos
sense, from
propuesto la creación de un modelo
WRA, we
estratégico
propose
para
the creation of
calcular
strategic model to
el consumo
calculate
energético y la cantidad
the
de flota de las
consumption
ciudades
of
que puede ser
energy and the
electrificada.
amount of the fleet
Este
of the city that could
permite
be
crear o
electric.
estimar un diseño
This
operativo
allows us to
acorde al
create an
cumplimiento de los
operative
servicios que se
system
deseen, es decir, cumplir las frecuencias de paso
with
de acuerdo a los estudios de demanda,
according with the system,
teniendo en
the
cuenta el
frequency,
consumo
and
energético del
also
bus.
taking in
Esto también
consideration the
nos
electrical
permite
consumption of the bus.
identificar rutas potenciales a ser
This allows
electrificadas.
us
Yo lo
to
llamo
identify
compatibles
some
con los buses
compatibilities.
eléctricos que
These
se
are
quieren
routes that
comprar.
are
Y también pues
compatible with
mencionar
the
ciertos elementos que nos
electrical
van a servir
buses.
para
And also
calcular
we can
costos de
add some
inversión, como
elements
el número de
that help us to
cargadores,
calculate the
la frecuencia de
investment,
recarga
the
y, por
number of
ejemplo, el perfil de
chargers,
consumo eléctrico para
the
lo que son los
frequency of
consumos
charge,
horarios, que pueden tener tarifas
the
diferenciadas.
time, that could be
Es
some
importante mencionar que esta herramienta
different
pues se
tariffs.
limita al análisis
This
de la descarga y no
tool
incluye un análisis de
it's not
reestructuración de rutas
for a
porque pues esto ya implica
restructuration of
cambios en la
routes
demanda y tampoco es
because
una
it
herramienta de
implies the
programación
demand of
o de
changes. This
descripción de
is
los
not a
despachos de
tool
las
for
unidades.
program or
Siguiente, por favor.
description.
Aquí vamos a acotar un poco la tecnología y los métodos de recarga en
The
los que nuestro modelo está
technology
basado.
and
Primero que
charge
todo,
system
tenemos diferentes
based
tipos de
used for
buses
our
de
model
cero y
is
bajas
we have
emisiones.
different buses.
Principalmente nos vamos a concentrar en los
We are
vehículos
going to
eléctricos de
focus
los
on the
buses eléctricos de
electrical
batería.
buses with
Estos buses
batteries.
pues se caracterizan
These
por tener
buses
sistemas de
are
carga lenta. No
characterized
vamos
for
a,
have
no,
a
no vamos a
slow
indagar en los
charge
que tienen
system.
pantógrafos y de carga de
We're
inducción.
not going to talk
Y
about
pues porque esta
pantograph or
infraestructura
induction
es un poco más
charges
económico
because
que la
they're
carga por inducción y también
more
pues que
economic
invertir en
than
catenarias en el
induction,
caso de los
and
trolebuses.
also
Siguiente,
to
por favor.
invest in catenary for trolleys.
En sistemas de carga estamos
In
basados
charge
en sistemas de
systems, we
enchufe o
are
plug-in
based on plug-in
por medio de carga
systems
conductiva, es decir,
with
conectados
car
a los vehículos
inductive
directamente.
conductive
Y
charging,
en temas de
so
estrategias de
directly
carga,
plugged to the
no
vehicle.
vamos a hablar de oportunidad, sino que
We're
vamos
not talking about opportunities, but
a enmarcar este estudio específicamente en el tema
we
de
are
patios.
talking about these
Esto
student
porque en nuestro caso
studies.
personal, porque en Colombia no tenemos un tema en
In
definición de
Colombia, we
normativas
don't
y organismo
have
para implementación de cargadores
definitions
de
for
oportunidad
urban
en los
for
corredores.
chargers.
Siguiente, por favor. Y este es lo que llamamos el corazón
And
del
this is
modelo. Se
what we
puede ver un
see
poco
the
complejo,
heart,
voy a tratar de
what we call the
explicarlo
heart of the model. You
un poco
can
a poco.
see that this is a
Em,
little bit complex, but I
como
will try to
insumos del
explain
modelo,
step by step.
requerimos conocer
As an
las
input,
condiciones físicas de la
we
ruta,
need
lo que es
to
la
know the physical
distancia,
condition of
las
the route,
pendientes, las
length,
distancias desde el
slope,
inicio de la ruta
distance
hasta los patios
from the
y también
in
si el
start of
vehículo
the
es
route to the
necesario que ande con el aire
patios,
acondicionado
and
por
also the
temperatura
use of air
o
conditioning because of temperature.
simplemente o algún tema dependiente. También tenemos que incluir
We
el
also
dimensionamiento
have
de
to
flota
include dimensions of
por
service
velocidades,
and
los
fleet by
horarios,
route,
la tipología, entre
speed,
otros.
schedules,
Y
typology,
también
etc.
tenemos curvas
And
de consumo
also
por
we
velocidad.
have energy
Los
consumption
vehículos tienen
trends
diferentes consumos en función de su
according to the
velocidad. Hemos
speed,
encontrado
and we have
que,
found
por
that,
ejemplo, velocidades de
for
18 o 20
instance,
kilómetros por hora son
18
las
to
más
20 kilometers per
con mejor consumo
hour
energético.
are
Y
the ones
finalmente,
with the best
datos de entrada del
energy
vehículo,
consumption.
como
And
su
also
autonomía y
characteristics
su
of
carga.
the e-bus according to the
El
city, like
proceso.
range
Se
and load.
asignan la flota de
Process.
servicios Es decir,
initial
tratamos de
assignment of
simular
fleet to services, we try to
luego
make
estimamos
a
el consumo
timetable,
energético de
and
cada
then we
recorrido y
estimate the
identificamos
energy
en qué momento el
consumption
bus ya
for the
está
route,
descargado.
and we
Al
identify
finalizar el
when the
ejercicio
bus has
vamos a
no more
asignar
charge.
espacios
By
de
the
recarga a cada bus
end of this
y puede ser el
exercise,
caso que la ruta no nos dé para ser electrificada porque tenga que ir demasiadas veces al patio a
maybe
hacer
there's
recargas diurnas,
no the
lo
chance
que puede generar
for this route to be
excesos o
electrical,
más bien
because
mayores
maybe the
costos
bus should
operativos por
go
los tiempos
back
muertos,
to the
más pues todo
patio
el tema
for load,
logístico.
and this could
También
increase
vamos a
some
obtener un
dead
segundo grupo de
times
rutas que
and
son
more
las
time,
potenciales a
and
electrificar
also increase in the cost.
y como resultado vamos a obtener
And as a result, we
estas
could
rutas
have
que pueden ser electrificadas y el número de
these
buses
electric routes
cargadores,
and the
su consumo
number of the
energético diario
buses.
y por
We
hora
could
y
determine
también
its
los momentos
energy
de
consumption per
recarga de cada
day
bus.
and per hour, and also
Algunas
moments
premisas del modelo,
for recharge
trabajamos
these
con
buses.
la estimación del caso más crítico
Some companies
al año 7, perdón, en el cual
work with the
se espera
estimation to
que
the
las baterías deban
7th
ser cambiadas por
year,
la degradación.
when we expect
También
to
tenemos un
change the
rango de carga
batteries
entre el
because of
90% y
degradation.
el
We
10%.
also have a
Y
range of
finalmente,
charge
en el caso
from
específico de
90 to
Colombia,
10%.
se evitaron
And for the
las recargas
specific
entre
case
las
of
5 y las 9
Colombia,
de la noche.
we
Esto
avoid
es
to
porque
charge between
este es el
5
horario
p.m.
pico de
and 9
Colombia
p.m.
para
because this is
el
the
uso de la
peak
red energética.
time of
Entonces,
Colombia
es
in
importante
terms
también
of
revisar si
use of the
hay
electrical network.
tarifas diferenciales de
It is
electricidad
important
que
to
efectivamente abran el
verify if
espectro a
we have
ciertas horas en
some
las que no
different
se deba
rates of
recargar
energy
el bus.
consumption and different uh, amounts
Esta
for
es
energy
un
consumption
ejemplo
to
pequeño de
avoid
cómo es
charge the
nuestra
buses in
simulación
that time.
para
This is an
comentarles
example
en
of the
cada hojita
simulation.
el análisis de una ruta y cada línea corresponde
Every
a un
line
bus.
is a route.
Cada columna corresponde a un periodo de
Every
30
column,
minutos
it's 30
y lo que se
minutes
hace en
period.
este ejercicio
And
es
what we have in
simular
this
con unos,
exercise is
con Ls y
to
con Rs los diferentes estados de la operación.
simulate
El
with,
1 significa que el bus está operando
it
y
means
que
that the
todo el
bus is
periodo
in
y que corre durante todo
operations
el periodo.
and it's running
El
in the whole
M
period.
significa que es la distancia
M
entre el
means
patio
the
y el inicio de
distance
ruta
between
y
the
que solo vamos a
patio and
tener
the
en
start of the
cuenta
route that we
un
have to
kilometraje muy corto,
consider
pues dependiendo de
a
la distancia de los
short
patios. Y finalmente el R son
kilometers
periodos de
depending on the
recarga.
distance and are
Entonces, como se
our
puede dar cuenta
recharging
acá, por ejemplo,
processes,
tenemos
I mean
un
periods,
tiempo de recarga
and
en
also
el patio
have a
en el
recharge
día y
period in the
tenemos otros
patio
ejemplos a la
in the
derecha
day,
de
and we
cómo
also
se
have some
simula o se
examples to the right
presentan
and how to
propuestas de recarga
simulate
nocturna.
in the night
Siguiente, por favor.
recharge.
Y este es un poco el resultado.
This is the result.
Los colores rojos significan que los
Red
buses andan en
means
un
that
valor muy
buses
cercano a
are
su descarga,
in an amount
mientras que los
very
verdes
close to
significan que
the
em,
discharge,
andan en valores muy cercanos
and
al 100%,
green
bueno,
means
90%
that
cargados en este caso.
the buses are
A la
around
izquierda pueden ver un
90% of
poco cómo se
charge.
simula la descarga
In the
cuando
left,
ven
you can
el
see
cambio
the
de color entre verde y
discharge
amarillo,
simulation
como
when you
poco a
can
poco
see
va
the
bajando y
changing
luego
color from
se
green to
simula la
yellow.
recarga cuando
And
pasa
then
del
we have the
33 al
simulation for the
67%, por
recharge.
ejemplo, y finalmente
And
se
finally,
dejan en espera en el depósito en las horas valle
we
para
left them
nuevamente
waiting in the
asignados a la ruta
deposit
en el periodo
to go
pico.
back to the
Este
route
ejercicio,
in
como
the
les comenté,
peak
fue realizado para
time.
el año 7. ¿Por qué?
This
Porque
is
pues estamos
in
simulando
battery
el peor
conditions
caso en el
degrading
cual
year
pues ya tenemos
7
una
because
degradación de la
we're
batería.
simulating the worst case
Siguiente, por
in the
favor.
battery degradation.
Y bueno, un poco de los resultados.
Also the results.
El modelo como tal utiliza criterios
The
técnicos
model uses technical
que se
criteria
combinan con criterios
that are
financieros como
combined with
la demanda de
financing
pasajeros,
criteria
temas
like
ambientales,
passenger
políticos,
dependence,
también
environmental and
estudios de
politic
género e
topics, and
inclusión
also
social
gender
que nos dan
studies,
etapas
social study that
recomendadas de
gave us
implementación.
stages
Y en cada
for
etapa vamos a tener
implementation.
diferentes
In
variables,
each
como por
stage, we
ejemplo
have
el número de
different
buses,
variables
el
like the
número de
number of buses,
cargadores y la
the
demanda
number of
energética
charges,
total, ya sea
and
de
the
un
energy
patio o
demand,
ruta, y también segregada por hora
and
si
also
es lo que se desea.
split it by
Teniendo en
hour.
cuenta pues que en algunos
Taking
contextos
into
tenemos tarifas
consideration that in some
diferenciadas por
countries
hora
we have
o
different tariffs per
tarifas
hour
especiales
or
para operadores.
special
Siguiente, por
tariffs
favor.
for operators.
Un poco de los resultados que les
Some
comentaba,
of the results that I
tenemos
was talking about,
un número de
we
buses
have
total,
first
porque
a
el
total
número de
number of
cargadores,
buses,
usualmente la
the total
regla,
number of
digamos,
chargers.
el valor de referencia
The
es un
reference
cargador
value
para dos
is
vehículos.
one
No
charger to
obstante,
two
pues
vehicles,
dependiendo las restricciones de recarga del patio puede variar
but
este
depending
número.
on the
Y
charge
también pues
restriction of the patio, this
podemos
number
obtener el
could
perfil de consumo
vary.
de energía de
Also,
un
we can
patio
have
a
the
lo largo del día,
profile
como
of
se
the
ve
energy
en la
consumption
imagen de
for a
arriba.
patio according
Como
in
pueden
one
ver, los
day,
picos
as you
están
can
es en
see
la
in the
noche,
image.
que llega
The
hasta
peaks
1800
are at
kilowatts.
night
Este marca
that
también
we can
un
reach
parámetro de diseño para los patios
1,800
y pues
kilowatts.
que debe ser
This
garantizado
is
por la empresa
a
de energía.
design
Si la
parameter
empresa de
for the
energía local
patios that
dice
has to
no
be
se puede,
guaranteed by the companies. If
es
the company
necesario
said we cannot do
bajar,
it,
digamos,
it is
distribuir la
necessary
carga
to,
durante más horas
to
en las
distribute
horas
the
de la madrugada
charge
para así
in
pues poder
different
tener un
times
punto
during
de
the
equilibrio que el
night
operador
to
del
reach
sistema
the
energético nos
balance
recomienda.
point of the electrical
Siguiente, por
company.
favor. También esta información
It
es
is
un
also,
insumo
this information is
clave para
also
los
an
análisis de total
important
cost ownership.
for total cost
En estos
ownership
análisis,
analysis.
pues
In
comparamos
this
tanto los
analysis,
costos
we
de
can
inversión como
compare
los costos de
investment
operación.
costs and
Y por ejemplo, acá
operation
vemos un
cost.
ejemplo, aquí
And
vemos
we
como
can see
en
an
el caso de Pasto,
example
la inversión
for
inicial o lo que
Pasto,
llamamos
the
capital
initial
expenses
the
es
expenses capital
2.5
is
veces más costosa
2.5 times
que
more
la
expensive
inversión, por ejemplo, para un sistema de
than
buses diésel.
the
No
investment for
obstante,
diesel
con los precios de energía
buses.
local y los
However, with the
datos
local
de
energy
consumo
prices
del
and
sistema, vemos cómo
consumption
se baja
of the
a la
system,
mitad los
we
costos
could
de operación.
see how to decrease
Entonces,
to the
la
half
herramienta no
the
genera
cost of
el
operation.
análisis de TCO,
So the
pero
tool is not
sí
for
genera
analysis,
muchos de
TCO
los
analysis,
insumos
but
requeridos
it
para hacer
creates a
los
lot
análisis de TCO.
of input
Siguiente, por favor.
for TCO analysis.
También, pues como ya nos comentó Rodrigo,
And
me gustaría
also,
mucho
as
mostrarles un
Rodrigo
poco de
said,
nuestros
I would like
resultados
to
en
show
Pasto,
you
Colombia,
our
y
results
también
in Pasto,
cómo
Colombia,
las condiciones topográficas y de
and also
temperatura
the
pueden afectar o
the
cambiar
topography
el
and how
diseño un poco.
temperature can
Bueno,
change the
Pasto
design.
queda en Colombia a
Pasto
80
is in
kilómetros de la frontera
Colombia,
con
80
Ecuador en la
kilometers
región
from the
andina.
border
Tiene una
of
altura
Ecuador in the
de
Andean region.
2.527 metros sobre el nivel
It
del mar,
has
una población de casi medio millón de habitantes.
2,527 meters
Tiene
above the
una
sea
topografía
level
montañosa y
and a
temperaturas
population
que
of
rondan entre
almost
los 9 y los 20 grados,
500,000.
lo
A
que hace que
temperature
no sea
that
necesario
is from
diseñar el
9 to
sistema
20
en
degrees. So
función
there's
del
no
aire acondicionado,
necessary
o mejor
to
dicho, sin aire
develop this
acondicionado porque pues
system
no hace mucho
according
calor.
to the air
Siguiente, por
conditioner
favor.
because it's not too hot.
En Pasto hay 25 rutas, de las
In
cuales 7
Pasto, we
son
have 25
estratégicas,
routes. 7 of them
18
are
complementarias al
strategic,
sistema y
18
tienen
are
4 patios.
complementary routes, and they have
Tienen una flota total de
4 buses
410
depots.
vehículos, como nos
They have
comentó
a total
Rodrigo,
fleet
pero
of 410
pues
vehicles,
tiene más o menos el restante en flota de reserva, es decir, tiene
and
382 operativos y el
and
restante hasta
38
420 como
382 are
flota
operative,
de
and the
reserva. Y
rest are
finalmente
the
tiene una
reserve
operación en la que
fleet.
pues solo el centro es
And
plano,
also,
el
they
resto de la
have
ciudad
a
tiene pendientes
constant
permanentes mayores
elevation,
al 5%.
only
Siguiente,
one
por
part
favor.
of the city. The other part of the city
Aquí
has a
hicimos un
lot of
poco de
slopes.
procesamiento de información
This is information
que
processing
recibimos, modelación de
that
consumos
we
energéticos.
gather as
eh,
modeling of
Hicimos
electric
el análisis
consumption.
de preselección de rutas basada en la
We
pendiente y en la
pre-select
longitud,
some
también
routes
un modelo
based on
optimizado de
length
operación y
and
carga,
slope,
y
and also
finalmente le
modeling of
entregamos la
operation and
priorización
charge and
por etapas,
discharge,
que es la que
and
les voy a
route
mostrar en la
prioritization
siguiente
by
slide. Siguiente, por
stage.
favor. Como resultado tuvimos
As a
3 etapas,
result, we
una
have
de
3
alta potencial,
stages,
una de
one of
media
high
potencial
potential,
y
medium,
una de que no puede ser electrificada
and
en este
one that
momento.
I
¿Qué
cannot be
significa que no
electrified by
puede ser
now? That
electrificada en
means
este
that
momento?
cannot be
Que son
electrified.
rutas que
What
no
does it
son
mean? There are
compatibles con
routes
los
that are
vehículos que
not
están disponibles en el mercado.
compatible with
Por
the
lo tanto,
vehicles
la
available in the market.
recomendación para la ciudad
That's
fue que
why the
por ahora no
recommendation for the
considerar
city is
electrificar
that
esas
by
rutas.
now not
Esto es algo que puede suceder.
consider
La
this route to
tecnología
be
está en
electric.
desarrollo todos los días.
This could happen because technology is
Y todavía es muy
developing
limitada,
every day
sobre
and
todo en los
is
tiempos de
very
recarga.
limited
Entonces,
today.
puede ser que en algún momento un proyecto de
It could be
electrificación no
done
sea
in
viable
one
y
moment
pues es
when
necesario también
electrification project
ser
is not
directos y decir qué pues, se puede hacer y qué no puede hacer la tecnología,
working
básicamente. En este
depending on
sentido, como nos
technology.
comentó Rodrigo también,
In this
esta primera
sense, as
etapa de
Rodrigo
3
said,
rutas
this
tiene
is
un
the
total de
first
72
stage of
buses,
3 routes
la
with a
cual
total of
pues
72
la
buses,
ciudad decidió arrancar
and the
15
city
pilotos de
decided to
15
start
unidades
with a pilot of
y
15
finalmente
units. And
como pueden ver a
finally,
la derecha,
as you can
es el
see in
cálculo
the right,
energético
this is the
para
electric
la primera etapa
calculation
y también los
for the
cargadores
first
simultáneos para
stage
cada una
and
de las
also
rutas.
the
Tal
chargers for the routes,
estimó y se entregó en su momento a
as
la
it
ciudad.
was estimated and
Siguiente, por
presented to the
favor.
city.
Finalmente, unas cuantas
Finally,
conclusiones. Primero,
some
pues es muy
conclusions.
importante
First, it
planear
is
estos
very
sistemas
important to
de
plan
manera de que
this
sean
system
compatibles tanto la
for
ruta
them to be
como el
compatible and
sistema,
also the route with the
las
system,
condiciones operativas.
the
No
operational
olvidar la
conditions.
importancia de
Don't
los
forget
factores
the
adicionales que
importance
pueden
of
afectar
additional
el
factors
rendimiento
that
del
could
vehículo, como
affect
el uso del aire
the performance
acondicionado,
of the
las
vehicle, like the
pendientes,
usage
la
of air
velocidad y
conditioning,
también la
speed,
distancia a los
slopes,
puntos de
and
carga.
also distance
Las
from
condiciones
the
locales
charge points.
pueden afectar,
Local conditions
pueden restringir esta operación,
could
entonces no deben ser ignoradas durante el proceso de planeación.
influence this operation, so
También
they
es
should not be
recomendable evitar
ignored.
las recargas
It is also
durante los
recommended
periodos de picos
to
de consumo energético.
avoid
Esto
the
porque pues puede
charge
estresar el
during the
sistema y
peak of
también puede
energy
aumentar los costos
consumption
y queremos
because
pues
this
en lo
could
posible
affect the
disminuir
system
los
and
costos
also
de operación.
increase the cost.
También una opción para
Also
evitar recargas
is
diurnas que pueden ser
an
complejas para los
option to
operadores es que
avoid
desde los pliegos de condiciones
daily
se
charge
definan valores
is
mínimos de
that we have
autonomía
to
de tal
define
manera que pues
minimal values of
eviten estas recargas.
autonomy
Es decir,
to
desde el
avoid
inicio
this
podemos hacer un
recharge. So
cálculo de
from the
cuántos
beginning,
kilómetros
we can do some
recorre un bus en promedio al
calculations
día
of
y
how
tomarlo como
many
referencia
kilometers a bus
para evitar pues la recarga diurna.
goes per
Y
day to
preferiblemente
avoid
este valor de
recharges.
referencia debe estar
And
dado
this
al año en un
referential
7 con
amount
degradación. Y finalmente,
should be
pues
calculated to until the
recordamos
seventh
que este
year.
modelo pues tiene un
Also,
objetivo
to
específico
remind you
que es
that this
validar
model has a
la
specific
compatibilidad de la
objective,
ruta
just
con
is
la
to
del bus
compare
con la operación y
to compare
no debe usarse
the
como
route
una
with the
herramienta de
vehicle,
scheduling
and this
o
is not a
de
tool for
definición de
scheduling
salidas de los buses.
or definition
Muchas
of the
gracias.
buses.
Ha sido
Thank
un
you
poco
very
rápido,
much.
sé que es un
It's
tema
been a
complejo, pero
bit
pues
fast.
estamos
I
acá
know this is
abiertos
a
a
complex
responder todas sus
topic where we're
preguntas.
open for questions.
Te paso la palabra, Lidia. Gracias.
Lydia, now it's your turn. Thank you.
Gracias, Rafa. Y gracias a todos. Sé que
Thank you, Rafa. Thank you, everyone. I know that we only have some couple of minutes left. But Rafa, I have a question for you. Can we apply this tool in another context, like, for example, in other countries?
Sí, efectivamente.
Yes,
La herramienta puede ser
the
transferida
tool can
a
be
otras ciudades. De hecho,
applied
esta
to
herramienta se ha
other
aplicado
cities. In
ya a
fact, this
3
tool was
ciudades en
already
Colombia.
applied in 3
Estamos
Colombian
expandiéndola a
cities.
otras 2.
We are expanding to
Pero es
2
importante tener en
more.
cuenta que
But it's
todos
also
los valores de
important to
entrada deben
have
ser
in mind
ajustados,
that the
tanto primero al
amounts and
vehículo que
values
se
has to
desea
be
analizar,
adjusted
a las
to the
condiciones
vehicle,
dependientes de las
to
ciudades
the
y a las
conditions of
condiciones
the
propias de
city,
cada ruta.
and also to the route condition.
Perfecto, gracias.
Perfect, thank you.
Bueno, gracias de nuevo a todos los
Thank you
asistentes.
again, everybody, for being here. We have a small questionnaire of 4 minutes that will be sent to you after this event. Thank you for your participation, and we hope you have a great day. Thank you very much.